Before wrapping up his three-nation tour of Africa on Sunday, U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken was confronted with the realities of America's waning influence on the continent. During the Trump presidency, Africa slipped even further down Washington's agenda. Blinken's trip was in many ways to make up for lost time, but also to learn how to engage with a continent increasingly aware of its place in the world. In Kenya, where his trip began, Blinken heard about the crisis in Sudan and Ethiopia, where American diplomacy has so far failed to mediate a solution.
The United States wants to strengthen our partnerships across Africa in ways that serve your interests, our interests, and the interests of people worldwide, whose lives and futures depend in part on what we can achieve together.
From Blinken's trip, Washington also learned that appetite for great power competition remains low in Africa, where leaders and the public are mostly invested in their development challenges.
And as a sign of our commitment to our partnerships across the continent, President Biden intends to host the U.S.-Africa Leaders Summit to drive the kind of high-level diplomacy and engagement that can transform relationships and make effective cooperation possible.
On Friday, the White House announced that Biden would convene a U.S.-Africa Leaders Summit next year, but didn't mention who would be invited and when.
At this so-called Mercado, there's a bit of everything. As this is one of the most crowded markets in Luanda, there are only two things that are sometimes lacking and worrying: social distancing and the use of masks. Many vendors admit that they don't feel safe, but they also assume that they have no alternatives. This disease is invisible. We can't see who has it and who doesn't. We have not been allowed to ask whether we can serve those who are not vaccinated or not. We are simply just selling. Yes, I ask for the vaccination card of my customers. If they don't present me with a card, but have a mask in their mouths, that's enough. I didn't bring the mask today because I forgot it at home, and also the vaccine card. With this disease, only God can take care of us. Let's put everything in God's hands. Without Him, we can do nothing. The Angolan authorities have set up a vaccination post in the market for everyone who wants to shop and also to be safe.
A former hotel driver went on trial in Paris on Monday, accused of complicity in Rwanda's 1994 genocide for transporting Hutu militiamen who massacred hundreds of Tutsis. Investigators say Claude Muhanyimana also hid Tutsis at risk of death, fled after the genocide and gained French nationality in 2010. He is also waiting for one thing: to be able to explain himself. Today, he is in his 60s. He is a man who has had a difficult life, who is by the circumstances worn out, tired, and who is waiting to be able to explain himself and have his honor returned to him. This sketch gives a clear picture of the 60-year-old French Rwandan ex-hotel driver in the courtroom on his first day of trial, clad in a pair of jeans, t-shirt and leather jacket. You know, an accomplice. He is charged with complicity, and complicity, I think, in law is exactly the same as if you are an author. So it's like he is a co-author, but it's the proceedings that will determine whether or not he is guilty of that, whether or not he collaborated out of his own free will or not. The genocide, one of the worst atrocities of the 20th century, saw 800,000 minority Tutsis and moderate members of the Hutu majority slaughtered in 3 months. 3 people have already been convicted, an army officer and 2 mayors. The trial is expected to last for a month.
Sudan's reinstated Prime Minister Abdallah Hamdok said on Monday that he will have the authority to form an independent government. His comments took place one day after signing a deal with the military that almost 1 month earlier staged a coup and placed him under house arrest.
This is a key part of the political agreement we signed, that the Prime Minister should have the power and the authority to form an independent technocratic government in absolute liberty and without any pressures. This is what we signed the agreement for. I'd like to speak frankly. I don't have any personal ambitions to remain a figurehead or to join a particular party or group, or to gain higher popularity. I'm all driven by the responsibility placed on my shoulders. I am guided only by the ambitions and hopes of the Sudanese people.
According to Sudanese medical sources, since the October 25th military coup, that at least 41 people have lost their lives in anti-coup protests. The agreement is part of solving the problem because this needs a solution. Hamdok's speech is convincing because he saw the killing of young people in the streets and the country is going backwards, which does not lead to improving the situation. After people put their hopes and ambitions on Hamdok, he signed in the end. We are actually shocked, but Hamdok will fall and the street will say its opinion in the end. The country's leading political opposition parties have said they reject the deal with the generals. During the signing of the agreement on Sunday, Hamdok said that his main goal was to stop the ongoing bloodshed. The authorities in Kenya have announced that from the 21st of December, everyone who is not vaccinated will be barred from using public transport and to access government buildings. The announcement was made by the Health Minister, Mutahi Kagwe. Vaccination rates in Kenya are currently less than 10% of the population. Official data suggests that the country has administered 6.4 million jabs out of a total of 10.7 million doses the country has received. Infection rates, however, remain relatively low. An average of 59 infections are reported every day. The government has set a target of vaccinated at least 10 million people by the end of December. This, however, represents only 20% of the population.